from looking at your campaign, from everything that I read about you, what I understood was that you were this kind of marketing super whiz who lives in Pasadena with his family, loves the city, and just sees where it can be improved and how to improve it. You have a plan. You have several plans.
Yes.
They're kind of listed. They're not kind of. They are listed on your website.
Right.
I wanted to talk to you about 4 of the items on there.
Sure.
Transparency.
Yes.
It said allowing any resident to log in and see how their tax dollars are being spent
Absolutely.
at any time.
Absolutely.
Has that been done before anywhere?
No.
No.
Never.
So
it's never even come up in a conversation
Yeah.
anywhere before. And that's when I tell you, like, I don't think traditionally like any of those guys. They don't have any imagination. So we're going to get 2 things from that. And I do this to spark the conversations. So say, for instance, if it happens, it's going to be great. You can actually go in real time on the city website and you can see where the tax dollars are going. So if the city council, or they're saying they're about transparency, now we're going to get a chance to see if our city government is about transparency. Now, the other flip side of it, if they're not about transparency, if they shoot that down, they're going to have to explain why they're not about transparency now, right? So now it's about the people and them, just like any other city council elected official, they'll be up for election also. And so they're going to have something to pay for of their lack of support for transparency, which is what they say they've been for. So I'm changing the narrative and I'm showing them how to fight differently. I'm showing them how to be impactful differently to hold us accountable. Because I've always said it's easy to help people. People build this crazy narrative and this mystique about, oh, it's so hard to help people. But when you have certain leverage and certain opportunities that you can lend to people, even if it's information, you can change the dynamics in the course of someone's life. And I always share this story. I was at this rent control meeting. And this woman, she stood up and she was saying her plight about her rent going up $75. She's on a fixed income. She was literally crying and she just was like distraught about this. Now, hearing this story, the average person may not feel like that's a big detrimental increase, but for someone like her, that's her story, that's her plight. And so what I do is always look for opportunities to solve problems, right? And I noticed in her hand she had an iPhone. It was the newest iPhone, but she had an iPhone. So afterwards, I immediately went up to her and I said, would you allow me to show you something that could potentially help you pay your rent? And she looked at me awkward, but then she obliged. She allowed me to show her. I went to her phone. I downloaded 2 apps. They were survey apps. And I told her, I said, if you spend like 3 hours over 7 days, just randomly 3 hours, put in 3 hours over 7 days, you can make $25 extra a week. 4 weeks, that's $100.
doing surveys.
Doing surveys.
Yeah.
You're at home, you're retired, right?
You hear that, hon?
So fast forward,
Yeah.
this was 4.5 months ago. She sent me the most amazing letter. My wife actually had like a couple tears in her eyes. She's making close to $400 a month now.
Right.
Doing surveys. But if she didn't know, she would never be at that place.
Right.
Now, I preference that when I say you can share that story with the current mayor, and what he would tell you, probably sarcastically in the way that he does, he'll say, that's not my role. That's not what I'm supposed to do. And he would be right, because the black and white definition doesn't describe that. But in 2019, we need more stepping outside the black and white definition of leadership.
You're expanding that role
Absolutely.
for yourself.
Absolutely.
Building tiny houses to help combat homelessness.
Yes.
Scott loves tiny houses, and they're one of
Big
his
fan.
I love
favorite
them.
things.
I love them. I love them.
I mean, he doesn't live in one, but he loves the idea of it.
Right.
How viable is that? Is that something that will really make an impact on homelessness?
So there's no absolute understanding of what the impact will be, because we haven't done it, and in order to know the true impact, you have to pull data from the experience of actually doing it. And so multiple things are in play right now. There are other cities and different models that we can pull from, but more importantly, me and my wife are stepping out right now. We're going to Dallas, which is where I was born, in my childhood home that I grew up in. We're actually working on a solution and plan to demolish that house and put 6 tiny homes on that property.
And tiny homes, what's the definition of them square footage wise?
Oh my, it's probably no more than 400,
Okay.
500 feet.
Yeah, they're truly tiny.
Yeah, they're truly tiny
Yeah.
homes. And we're going to pull some data from the the development of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one aspect of it. The other one is just trying to convince people that it's something viable, and the only way that I feel like we can do it is pulling from other examples from other cities,
Right.
the people that are doing it. But I feel like shelter is shelter. But if you give somebody an opportunity to have shelter and also include services and mental health services,
Yes.
a part of that particular program, you statistically you give yourself an opportunity to get people re-emerge back in society in a way that they feel worthy and comfortable and happy.
Yeah.
But we're never going to get anything 100%.
No.
You know,
No.
so-
But it's just important because the problem is it's so challenging, and there are so many people on the streets of Los Angeles in particular. We've gained
Right.
national attention for it.
Absolutely.
So anything that might help move the needle at all is helpful. You also talk about generating income through quote-unquote unconventional ways for the community. Can you just name a couple of those unconventional ways?
So one of them is something that I propose. It's kind of like a group economics, and it's nothing new. It's nothing genius that I thought of. I'm just pulling from other successful models, and I called it the Pasadena Fund. And the example I always use is that, say for instance, if we get like 3,000 residents that participate from the beginning of the inception of it, and you commit $20 a month for the first 15 months, after the 15 months, the fund becomes active. And what you have, and nowhere in the country, you have individuals, 3,000 individuals that contributed $300 over a 15-month period, and they now are part of a $900,000 fund. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the fund itself has two flexible purposes. One of the purposes is that now you can actually say, for instance, if you were a part of it, you say, you know what, we saw this house in development in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
If the house is $15,000, another $15,000 to fix up, we can sell it for $100,000, right? Because a lot of boom is happening, whatever. On a day-to-day, being either low income or middle class, check for check, you couldn't take advantage of that opportunity. So the fund will make an assessment no different than the bank to make sure it's a viable opportunity for the fund. And then they say, you know what, we'll give you 100% of the funds you need. So that's $30,000. And they'll go and purchase that for you, give them money for the upgrades or whatever. And then once you guys actually go through the transaction of selling the house, the fund gets 70% of those funds. You get 30% of those funds. What's beautiful about the 30%, if you really understand it, now you can actually go and duplicate the process again without the fund.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you can get 100% of your profit. So it's a self-sustainability. So that's just one mechanism of how it can work. The other mechanism, there are frustrations about a lot of gentrifications in your neighborhood. Now you actually have a fund to combat that. So instead of that Chick-fil-A coming in by someone else that you don't know, you guys can actually lobby to create that Chick-fil-A for yourself. So now 3,000 members have dividends coming every month off of that Chick-fil-A that's in the same city.
Yeah.
So you can gentrify your own community. So now we eliminate the excuses. You can step up and you can really change the narrative. Be patient, be diligent, and have a strategy in place. And you guys can do some amazing things if you really understand what group economics can do for you and your community.
Right. Is this in play in other cities, group economics?
Yes, there's this gentleman by the name of Jay Morrison in Atlanta. He created the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. This Tulsa Real Estate Fund is doing amazing work, and the ideology comes from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, on how they built up an entire city based upon their economics. And he took that same blueprint and formula, and he has I want to say like a 40,000 square feet new building, painting it black. So it's like the Black House, but it's for entrepreneurship. It's for financial literacy. It has all these great programs, credit literacy, real estate literacy, and it's amazing. So it's already happening all over. You got these people like Gary Vaynerchuk, you have Grant Cardone, Ty Lopez, all these people talking about group economics.
Yeah.
And just different ways on how you can make income and passive income. So it's happening already. That's how I was able to come up with it. I didn't come up with it just out of thin air.
But you want to implement it.
Absolutely.
And help the people of Pasadena help themselves.
Absolutely. And then being that leveraging platform, now I can actually have these people, the main people, come to our city and help produce these and partner with us on and show us how these mechanisms work.
Right.